Hello again. I am Anna Imagine with the la, 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 la. I am Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden, and clearly I have not had enough coffee yet. I am talking this week on love and relationships. I do not talk a lot about love and relationships for a reason. A lot of people want answers and solutions for their relationships, and 99% of the problem with relationships is you. It's a problem inside. It has nothing to do with a relationship. Relationships and love and partners and conflicts in relationships is 100% a symptom of your problems and your partner's problems. And they come together to create a big relationship problem. So, talking about relationships and trying to figure out why you have problems with love is like looking at a broken foot and talking about how do I explain this? It's like looking at a bleeding foot and just putting a Band-Aid on it, but you're not stopping the bleeding, you're not talking about, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't, like, play with knives." You're just putting Band-Aids on it. So, I don't like to do psychology work on relationships or love because that's a distraction from the real problem, and anyone who sits down and spends a lot of time talking to you about relationships and love and romance is lying to you. Because at the end of the day, that's a symptom. It really is a symptom. And people don't want to hear that. But I don't bullshit people. I don't like masturbate them and tell them what they want to hear. Sorry for being crude, but it's the truth. I will tell you, look, the relationship's not a problem. It's actually a mirror of what the big problem is. You want to know how healthy you are, look at a relationship. It's just a mirror. So for me, I take a different approach where I talk about you. I talk about the trauma that you decided not to resolve and then decided to go have a relationship while you still have mommy and daddy issues. It's the I'm not going to address the fact that I have sex trauma, but I'm going to go try and have a sexual relationship with a husband. Like, what are you doing? Of course, you're going to have problems. This is not rocket science. So then you end up with people who basically bury the skeletons in the closet and then they walk into relationships and they have 18 million marital problems. And then they go, "What's wrong with my husband?" Well, nothing's wrong with your husband. The problem is you have 8 million skeletons in the closet that you have not addressed since you were 2 years old. You need to go do some mental work. So, my approach on relationships and love is really different than what's out there. Yes, I could spend a no, I couldn't do it. It's not ethical to me. It's not authentic to me. I cannot be one of those persons who just takes money and helps people with marital problems because subconsciously I'm going, that's dishonest and bullshit. Why are you ripping people off? So, and there's absolutely it's the dirty business of psychology because it's absolutely it's like you've got a hole in your bucket and you go to a carpenter and you say, "I don't know why the water won't hold in the bucket," and the honest carpenter will go, "You've got a hole in your bucket, you need to just go get a new bucket, or you need to sit down and really examine your ability to pick out a bucket, or you need to really sit down and examine why you're picking a bucket with a hole in it." But a dirty business will go, "Oh, let me take a look here. You need to draw ABC, look at XYZ, and then blame this on Q over here." And if you have any other problems, come back and see me. And of course you're gonna have problems because you haven't addressed the problem, which is you. So my perspective on relationships and love is really different than what's the norm. So that's my 2 cents in 4 minutes. That being said, I do want to take a minute to kind of throw my perspective of love and relationships out there. I just did a video on relationships and how I view them, but love is pretty much kind of the same thing. It's what I had explained before was that you put the love before the horse. You go in with this concept of being in love with somebody else or being in love with the thought of being in love or being in love with a relationship. The problem is with love is we think it's an emotion, and I'm going to say a million times over until I die, love is not an emotion. It is a state of being. It is not an emotion. And the reason why I can prove this is because emotions have one primary characteristic. First primary characteristic is emotions are temporary. Temporary. You're not supposed to feel an emotion that decides to settle down inside of you and then camp out for 20 years. Emotions don't do that. Newsflash. What emotion does that? When you're angry, It's literally like, I'm angry for 2 hours. Give me time to cool off. And then you're back to not being angry. And then you have this stable system is humming and everything's all fine. So emotions primarily come from the cognitive core. And it's either there's two primary kinds of of emotions that come out of the cognitive core. The first kind that comes out of the cognitive core is the emotion that tells you this is the process, everything's processing, and you've got new beliefs that are coming in, and it's just going through the process. That is your shock, your denial. That is your negotiation. These are emotions, people, and these are emotions from the cognitive core doing the processing that it needs to do to adjust the perspective accordingly. So you have anger that comes in, or you have joy. It depends on whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. And then you have sadness as you count all your losses, or you have celebration where you count all of your gains. And then you have stability or acceptance or forgiveness, which is the fifth stage of the processing. Now, for those of you who have done research, you might be saying to me right about now, you just listed the five stages of grief. Wrong. This is where they got this all messed up. There's more than just one emotion when you process in your cognitive core. Grief is one of like 10 emotions. If you have loss and you're suffering significant loss, yes, you're going to be talking about grief. Absolutely. And because death is prevalent, because, death happens and loss is prevalent, that's what people talk a lot about when it comes to the processing. But there's more emotions. There's nine other stages, nine other feelings that are associated with this processing. Grief is just one of them. You can also get a job promotion. That's new information. You're called into your office, into your boss's office. You have anxiety. You're going, oh my God, why am I being called into the office? You sit down and you're alert, you're anxious, you have anxiety, all from the cognitive core. You have new information that's starting to go through. You are bracing for the shock and the disbelief that's to come. They then tell you, we love your work, you're getting a promotion. You're going to have shock. You're going to have negotiation. Is this a mistake? Are you sure? We do it when we win the lottery. Oh my God. Are you sure? We get it. We do it when somebody, and you want to be pregnant, and someone tells you, I'm pregnant. And oh my God, are you sure? Because it's that shock and disbelief. You have to make sure that the new belief you just received is accurate and precise because you're going to start putting it into your cognitive core processing. So then the next stage, let's assume that let's keep going with the happy, good news. The next one is going to be celebration or joy. If it were grief or pain, it would be anger. Still, it's the third stage, but because we're celebrating and we like this news, we're going to have joy. And we're going to go whoopee and we're going to celebrate. We're going to say, well, I'm taking you out to dinner. Let's go right now. And you're just going to feel this buzzing high, but no one ever talks about it because this isn't a problem. This is when when everything is going everybody's way. So after that, you have this come off, it slides down, and then you enter the stage of complacency of all right, I'm how's this going to change my life? And you start counting all the gains, you start budgeting your bills. This is the opposite of, oh my God, I'm depressed, look at everything I've lost. This is the other side of it. So you get all of your information in, you start counting how it's going to affect your bills. You're counting all the ways it's going to increase your profits. You're going to realize, oh my God, I can start saving up and I can start getting that car that I wanted. Now you're in the what's the opposite of depression? Good question. I have no idea. We need to figure that out. But it's this stage where over here, you are counting your losses and you are planning ahead for a future, realizing, oh, this is really the impact. It's the impact stage. The depression stage of grief is actually the impact stage where you start to calculate, oh, this is the how it's going to impact me. Over here, when it's good news, you calculate all the positives, all the ways it's going to impact you. Over here, it's going to impact you negatively. Over here, it's going to impact you positively. Over here, that negative impact can cause depression. Over here, that negative impact causes the opposite of depression. I have no idea what that emotion is yet. I'm going to figure that out. And then after you've calculated it, you've done the math, you understand what changes are required, and then you're in forgiveness. or you're in acceptance. You have established it, you have received the new concept. It has been, the new belief has been registered and fully processed, and you adjust. And yes, it very much is forgiveness, going forward without giving a fuck. That's what forgiveness means. Going forward without giving a fuck. So that is that those are the 5 stages of processing. All of the emotions that we feel revolve around the cognitive core and its processing. So this is what happens when you have things that happen negatively, and that's what happens when you have things happen positively. You get all the positive range of emotions, you have all the negative range of emotions. You have emotions prior to the cognitive processing when you anticipate, when you have anticipation of a change happening to the cognitive core. That's your anxiety. That's your, oh my God, what's coming up? I can feel it. And now you have anxiety. Now you have anticipation because you know you're going to be receiving new beliefs soon. Now, so technically, there's actually 6 stages. And the first stage is anxiety and anticipation. And then the rest of them are, yeah, that's it. You've got this anxiety, anticipation, and then you have the news come in and you get shock and belief, negotiation. And then, depending upon which side, you have anger and you have joy, celebration. And then you have the how does this adjust to my, how is this going to affect me? And you start doing the calculations. Now, there's going to be a few protests with this system, and I'm going to go through them. The first one is, well, I've been angry for 20 years. Yeah, that's because your cognitive core got jammed up. We're going to go over that. Well, I've been depressed for 30 years. Yeah, that's because your cognitive core processing got jammed up. We're going to talk about that. So, when you receive a belief, if you reject the belief at any point during processing, you're going to stall out and get stuck in a certain stage. You can get stuck in the disbelief negotiation stage. I was there for a year. You can get stuck for a year in the negotiation stage. You can get stuck in fact, a lot of people who go through divorce end up stuck here where they just keep negotiating with their partner. Well, can't we work this out? Can't we do this? Can't we do this? Can't, and you'll just keep saying this for 6. My ex-husband has been saying this to me for 15 years now. 15 years he has tried negotiating with me because he is stuck in the disbelief negotiation stage for 15 years. The next one is the anger. You have the belief, you get to this stage, and then you reject the belief. You don't believe it. You don't believe it. That is what these words are. You don't believe it. You receive the information, you start the processing, you start to go through negotiation, and then you go, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And you get stuck in the negotiation stage. You have to go back, grab the belief, make amends with the belief, and continue the processing to get unstuck. So then you're in anger. You get to that point and you can reject the belief, going, I don't believe it. I won't believe it. I refuse to change my perspective to adapt to that new belief. Now you're stuck in anger. And you can be stuck in anger for 20 years because your perspective started to shift, to adjust, and you said, no, I refuse that new perspective. You refuse it. You refuse that belief that's going to alter that perspective. So now you're trapped in anger. That's why some people are angry for 20 years. Now, depression, you start counting your losses. You get all the way through, you get to that last one, you start counting all of your losses. And then you reject the belief and you say, I will not adjust my perspective accordingly. I'm going to stay right where I am. I will not move forward. But the processing has started. Now you are stuck in depression. Depression is no different than being stuck in anger, no different than being stuck in negotiation. You don't need medication. It's not a mental illness. You have a problem with processing. You need to go back over the belief that you rejected 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and that's it. The other flip side of what's causing your depression is you're being abused and you don't like it. So you need to change the abusive situation you're in. My depression was 100% caused by the abuse I was in. So I was depressed from 16 years old up until I was 40. And then when I got out of the abusive situation, the depression stopped. I never needed medication. All I needed to do was stop being abused. So throwing medication at depression is I'm gonna reserve my opinion on that. But that's what really needs to happen. Okay, I'm gonna say it. Throwing medication at depression is not addressing the problem. The problem is you need to change your situation because you're being abused, or you are stuck in the core cognitive core processing, and you can't move on to, like, you started counting all of your losses, and then you shut down. You said, no, I'm not going to change my perspective accordingly. I will not. You reject the belief. So then you get to that last stage, which is going forward without giving a fuck, which is forgiveness, which is acceptance, which is adjustment. You have adjusted and accepted the new perspective. And that's really when you have your cognitive core processing, you have your beliefs and you have your perspective. And you have to accept both of them. You have to accept the belief and you have to accept the new perspective. You have to accept the future that's to come. And if you refuse either one of them, you're going to mess up the cognitive core processing. And the subconsciousness will do this, will reject it to protect you. If they feel like, okay, this new belief that's coming in, this new perspective is dangerous, red alert, Jerry. And Jerry will slam that button and it will immediately activate the fear sequence. And then everything will be jammed up and the subconsciousness cannot process the cognitive core function that needs to be to get the right perspective required for your situation. Now you're looking at confusion because now you have conflicting beliefs. You have the old belief and you have the new belief that's not finished processing, and now you have confusion. Or you have an abuser who's bringing all this abuse into you that's conflicting with the whole cognitive core, which is giving you another perspective. So you're going to have confusion. The point is, every emotion you experience comes from the cognitive core and its processing center. Accept love. Accept love. I've torn this thing apart. I tore this thing apart. I've rebuilt it. I've torn it apart. I've rebuilt it. And I'm going, where's love? Love isn't here because love is not an emotion, because it is not anything in your cognitive core telling you from your subconsciousness, hey, conscious mind, we have a problem down here in cognitive core processing. Love isn't there because love isn't an emotion. Love is a state of being. So I suffered from narcissistic abuse syndrome for 40 years. Okay. I had a wonderful network of narcissism. I could get in. Narcissism is like my candy treat. So I'm going to keep this condensed because I don't want this video to turn into a narcissistic video. So what we're going to talk about is basically, just to give you some background, my mother, my father, and my brother are all narcissists. My mother suffered, she was more of a dry narcissist where she toggled. She was on the spectrum where she toggled both. My father's a vulnerable narcissist, 100%. My brother is a grandiose narcissist. And when my brother reached a certain level of authority, that's a fun topic. Then my mother and my father both became subservient to my brother. And my brother, at age 10, began ruling the house because he was the grandiose narcissist. The biggest narcissist wins. So that was my brother. So I was under the enslavement of my brother dictating how the house is gonna run. My father and my mother catered to my brother because he was the biggest and the baddest. And so the house literally was run by a 10-year-old and then a 12-year-old and then a 15-year-old. And that's how I grew up. So that by the time I was 15, I got the fuck out of Dodge. Unfortunately, I was an empath who had been taught to attract narcissists. So I attracted another narcissist who ended up enslaving me. I don't want to get into it, but another narcissist and then another narcissist. I had another owner come in, another one who groomed me and prepped me for trafficking. And then I had my first husband, vulnerable narcissist. My second husband was a grandiose narcissist and easily one of the most abusive of the lot of them. That being said, it wasn't until I was 40 that I got away, moved to New York City, and went, thank God, the narcissists are gone. And then I started to study how to identify narcissists, and I was able to figure out how to, from a distance, detect who's a narcissist and who isn't so I can put up the shield. I really, really got serious in the last 3 years about protecting myself against that kind of abuse. So one of the side effects of growing up around narcissists is the emotion love, the state of love is confusing. You don't know what it is. You've never seen it. They've never seen it. My brother will die never understanding or fully comprehending what love is and how it feels. So I had to go through a period these last 2 years to teach myself what love is, what it looks like, what it isn't. Good God, it was hard. And I started with coffee. I love coffee. It is part of my identity. I love cats. I love cats. Cats are a part of my identity. Really process what I'm saying here. When I love cats, I don't think, why doesn't it love me back? I think, I love cats. I have a cat right now sitting in the sunlight. It does not need to do anything for me. It just needs to exist. I just need it to exist. And I need to appreciate it. This is love. It exists. I appreciate it. The end. I don't have to own it. It's my son's cat. I don't have to own it. I don't have to have it in my lap. I don't have to possess it. I don't need it to love me back. I just need it to exist. And I appreciate it. That's love. I don't need my coffee to love me back. I just need it to exist. It exists. I'm very happy that coffee exists. And I appreciate it. That's love. My children. I love my children. I don't need them to do anything. I need them to exist. They do. That's it. I love them. I appreciate them. I love my Emily. I adore my oldest daughter. She hates my guts and has disowned me. Narcissist. I don't need anything from her. I don't need her love. I just love her. I need her to exist. And she does. She absolutely does. And I appreciate her. The end. That is love. Romantic love? Mm-mm. That is toxic garbage from the patriarchy. That is societal conditioning. Relationships and full-blown love stories, societal conditioning. Now, I'm telling you, you can still have a beautiful romantic love story, but really, when it's just a celebration of how you two appreciate each other, and that's all it is, it stops being about possession. It stops being about fear. The whole, is he going to love me back? That's not love, that's fear. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. That is not love, that is fear. You want to know where that comes from? Narcissism. Because narcissists are taught from a lack of love that love is visibility. They are taught that love is attention and servitude. They are taught that love is something that you take. They are taught that love is something you look at and go, what's in it for me? Sound like a narcissist, because it is. So that when you now love somebody while you have narcissistic abuse syndrome, you go, I'm in love with him. What do I get out of it? Is he going to love me back? Fear, narcissism. That's not love. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, narcissism. That's associating visibility with feeling like you're valid. That's not a problem with love. That's a problem with you needing to do some mental work and figuring out where you are because you have lost yourself and it's you you're actually pining for. But instead of actually doing the work, you're projecting that desire and loneliness onto somebody else to supplement the feeling of loss that you have because you have lost yourself. This is why I don't talk about love and relationships. because it has nothing to do with love. People come to a therapist and they're like, "I need relationship help." No, you don't. You want my advice? Break up with your boyfriend, do some mental work, do some soul searching, seriously sit down and have a conversation with yourself, dig out some of your skeletons, and then try and have a relationship. But don't go pursuing a relationship. No. Instead, date yourself, love yourself, don't want the relationship. And then for the fun of it, go date a few people. If one of them inspires love and relationships out of you, go for it. But you have about 10 years of work to do, and you have no business being in a relationship. But they don't want to tell you that because what they want is your money. So you'll be broken so you can keep going back asking for more and more advice. I don't do that bullshit. I'm going to be honest with you. Do not ever ask me about relationship advice. Do not ever ask me about love because my response is always going to be the same. You need to do the work. Now, here's the double edged sword of that. Just because you've done the work doesn't mean they have. Think about this one. This one's really hard to digest. This is where my problem is I've done the mental work. My partner has not. My partner probably will never do the work. Not my problem. I love him. I appreciate him. He exists. I wish he would heal. Universe, please heal him. But it's out of my hands. So when I go into a relationship with him again, I know that he's bringing his mental illness into it. Now, I have the added advantage of having 28 years of psychology. So knowing all of his mental illnesses, I can sit down and go, this is what he's got, this is what he's got, this is what he's got. This is going to be the consequences of this, 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 this. This is exactly what kind of a relationship I can expect with him. Okay, I accept. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people don't have the knowledge to do that. So they walk into a relationship blindfolded over all the skeletons in the closet. I know his skeletons and I have 28 years of psychology. So I can sit down, break it down and go, I know what I'm going to get. I know exactly. It's that simple. It's that simple. So you might be healthy. You might have done your shadow work. You might have done all the work, but has your partner? Because if your partner hasn't, and I'm going to be blunt, if your partner is a narcissist, find someone else. Because the very first step of getting help is humility. And narcissists don't know how to do anything else but abuse. And they do not understand love. They are going to use love to manipulate you because they don't understand it, because that's what they were taught is love. So the whole concept, if you are ever in a position where you're going, my relationship is terrible, that's a red flag that you have mental work to do. So the whole concept of going to a therapist and saying, fix my broken relationship, the relationship is a symptom. If you have two mentally unhealthy people, you're going to have a mentally unhealthy relationship. It's basically you're making a soup and you're choosing the shittiest ingredients, and then you're complaining that your soup is shit. And it's like, well, yeah, you're using shitty ingredients. You need to cultivate your garden. You need to sit back and take a look at how you're gardening. You need to add some nutrients and get better ingredients. And you don't do that by going to a therapist and talking and complaining about your relationships. What you need to be doing is fixing yourself. Now, when you fix yourself properly, because there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. When you fix yourself properly, one of the problems that you run into is you end up increasing your game and raising your standard. And then you end up choosing a partner who reflects your standards. So you basically level up. And when you first meet your partner, you're here and you might come together broken and you're both fucked up. And then you both decide, I'm going to do therapy. Now, they may not do the therapy or they may do poor quality therapy. This is actually a problem I ran into is my partner, that my grandiose narcissist second husband, he did go into therapy, but he spent his therapy literally proving to her how right he was. So after 10, 15 years of therapy, he was the same. If anything, he was worse. I did my program. So I was able to, well, according to my therapist, you cram 20 years into 5. So, yeah, and then I know psych. I have 20 years of psych. So I was able to just done. Okay, we're done. But I leveled up. He didn't. And suddenly my standards were up here and he couldn't rise up to my standards. And that developed severe frustration. Now, there was a lot of abuse and there was other problems and then he kicked me out because I couldn't breed for him. So, okay. But now I'm up here. So then I start attracting other partners and they're going to be on this level. Now I just leveled up again. My my current partner, my primary, my perfect fifth, he can't come up. And that's when we went, let's take a break. Now he's on walkabout. He's got work to do. He's got to figure out what to do. He's got to either meet me on my level. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know. And that is it exactly. Like, and you level up and your standards raise and your tolerance for bullshit seriously decreases the more you level up. And yeah, that is a huge reason why a lot of people don't fix themselves, is because they don't want to lose the people they love. Love. What's love again? You just need to exist. And I just need to appreciate you. So if you're seeking to possess, that's fear. If you're seeking to hold on and control, that's fear. You're afraid of something. You need to do some mental work because you are taking love, you're taking a human being, and you are using them to placate your insecurities. So, this is why I don't talk on love. That all being said, I think I've already exhausted this topic. I've managed to come out with 4 videos total, and I think I'm all done with these topics. Like I really have no tolerance for talking about relationships and love because I don't like talking about symptoms. That's why I reinvented the system, is because the system is designed completely to focus on the symptoms. Let's talk about the mental illnesses. Why are we talking about mental illnesses? With the exception of PTSD and cognitive behavioral therapy, we should not be talking about the symptoms. The symptoms are clues to tell you where the problem is. The problem is your parents and the cognitive core processing. Like, that's it. You have beliefs. I really need to do a video on beliefs. I really need to sit down and just talk about beliefs. That might be what I do today, where I just talk about beliefs and ethics and actions and voice. I think I'm going to do that. Yeah, yeah, because that to me is productive. That is information that you need so you can fix you, so you can figure out the way your subconscious works, your subconscious mind works. That way you can get shit done. Spending all this time talking about relationships and love is a waste of time, because what you really need to be doing is focusing on your ethics and your beliefs. Ethics actually ties into relationships and love. So that's a really good one, because I'm huge on loyalty and I'm huge on, well, I can't leave her or I can't leave him because of X, because of my ethics. Because when I make a commitment, I'm soul bonded. Because when I decide to give myself to somebody, it's for life, because that is my style of love. So, yeah, let's talk about ethics, beliefs, actions, voice, and perspective. We're going to tear that apart later today. So, thank you so much. All the links are below. I have a ton of Design Your Own journey located over at the Healing Garden, www.anashealinggarden.org, where I'm available for consultations. I am available for shadow work, courses, and the master classes. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.